Hi everybody, Alchemist Lion here, and today we're going to take a look at the anti-air traps, and I was expecting this video to go one way, and I have a whole different perspective on this right now, and I'm going to be trying some new things. I don't have all the information down perfect, but I have most of the information you need to make this worthwhile for you. The anti-air trap, it's not part of the crowd control, and it doesn't do damage to regular husks. It basically just helps with projectiles. And that feature is the main reason why I use it in almost every single build I have. It helps with lobbers, propanes, pitchers, and flingers. The flingers more so in the earlier realms, Stonewood, Plankerton, and Canny, but this is where things change. I went to show that it won't work in Twine, and I found a perk option that does. So I don't know how high it will go up in the levels, and if you really want to utilize it for that function in like an endurance type setting, but it can help in regular missions, and just knowing kind of how this trap works allows you to play with it more, and that's what I'm going to go for today. So I'm not going to give you all the information because I don't have it, but it's definitely good information that I do have to pass along and share so that we can play with these more. So this is the perk setup that I would say most people utilize, and it's the double range, double reload, durability with the heals builds attached. You're getting good range for space rocks, so they're shooting. The reload, they're shooting faster, so you only need a couple to handle flingers and lobbers. As well, you got that heals builds attached so that if they do get hit or if a propane goes off, there's a chance that it can repair itself. And this is kind of the standard. I use this in almost every mission when I'm using anti-airs, just because of the versatility of these perks. But like I said, I've seen some things now, so it's making me wonder if it might be better possibilities or better options. And that's kind of what I'll discuss and kind of go over today. Alright, so we're here in Plankerton, and here's my anti-air trap, and I'm using these basically as my lobber shield. You can do this in Stonewood, Plankerton, and even Canny, and get away with it fairly easily, especially with the perks of that double reload, double range durability. However, the trouble is using this in Twine has been a bit of a problem because the husks only get hit like half, 3/4, generally tops, and there's still leftover health when they land, and then they can hit the amp. Also in missions, you'll find that going into the later Twine, that becomes a bit of an issue. But this is kind of one of the main uses. It's also a deterrent for propane. It also helps with pitchers, as well as your lobbers. So they're quite a versatile trap to have more as like a protection piece for the rest of your builds. So this is kind of where I have it set up. They're also a trap that the direction doesn't matter. I do like to face them a certain way for the aesthetic value, but aside from a few milliseconds of it taking to turn around, they're quite versatile. The only thing, these traps do not like walls or things that obscure their view. If you have stuff like that, it's a very limited window that it would shoot through. Basically here, you wouldn't get any of that aerial or any of the side assaults, because if it can't see the projectile, it will not shoot it, and it won't shoot through walls. The other thing, they won't shoot UFOs or things like that. As well, husks, if you try to launch them in the air with like a launch pad, it won't shoot those type husks either. So how I like to place my anti-air traps, and I'll just go here, is, so you'll notice if I place them kind of like we do with drop traps, freeze traps, and all of that, it's going to be pointing basically to the right. So what I do is I walk to the left, and I look right, and then it will face the direction that I'm trying to go for, which would be like the straight ahead. So if I'm trying to point them straight, that's how I do it. I go to left, and I look right, and I put them that way, and that is more for aesthetic than anything, but I like to have my anti-airs all kind of facing the same direction. And that's the direction of like wherever the projectile is. If you look up here at space rocks, I kind of have them just facing spawn. That's more, as I said, for the aesthetic appeal than anything. But if you notice here, I don't have any lobber shield. I barely have a ceiling. And these 3 anti-airs are all that's needed here to stop not only space rocks, but any lobbers or flingers from throwing. Anti-airs will also not shoot husks being thrown up by these dirt cyclones. Um, Basically, anything that we throw up or the actual terrain throws in the sky, anti-airs don't. It's only the ones that flingers throw that do get shot by the anti-airs. You will notice though that in Kenny here at home base, I'll just show these ones. But I have negated any lobber shield necessity with these anti-airs. Flingers, nothing will be able to throw across and hit at the amp, and I save myself quite a few builds in the process. So if you look at this anti-air trap that we're using, the reload time is 5.4 seconds with an arming delay of 1 second. So that's 6.5 seconds that you have before this anti-air trap is usable again. The thing with anti-air traps is they won't go off simultaneously. You won't have 2 shooting at the same time. So you don't need a lot of them to be effective, especially when you have this reload speed set up. And I see a lot of times people will spam anti-air traps when it's really not necessary. Because of that reload speed, you need less of them. And that's one of the reasons that having the reload speed is good. Not only can it quick turn around and shoot again, but when you have a few of them, you don't need it to be that quick of a turnaround. So it allows you to reduce them when you do have that quick turnaround. The range is really for space rocks, and if the projectiles are getting close, it goes and shoots them quickly. So space rocks, you don't need 30 anti-air traps to work. You could really get away with 3 to 4 strategically placed and cover 80% to 90% of the space rocks coming down effectively enough. It's really just you got to find a balance on where the range is and kind of get your placements down so you can kind of maximize the spread and minimize how many you need. Now, the upgrade cost or the cost of crafting these has been reduced to match that epic one that people used to use all the time. So I'd recommend using legendary. It takes the 1 quartz and it gives you that extra 6 perk, which I find the heals is really good, and then you can use that 5th perk with that durability as opposed to kind of doing that increased build health or something with that. But having that extra durability can be helpful, especially if you're using it for lobber protection. Alright, we have a flinger right off spawn here, so let's see what he does. And he completely avoided throwing and went into the tunnel. And I'm finding they're doing that a lot now. As soon as I put these damaged ones here, they won't even throw. It's like they register the fact that these will obliterate what they're going to toss. And instead they opt to go through the tunnel. And that is the struggle I'm having with testing these, even in this 127 realm. So yeah. Now this is the one that I want to play with more. And this is kind of where I'm foregoing the range and the reload. So I'll need more anti-air traps. But these are doing more than double the damage to the husks. So if you notice, the reload time is now up to 10 seconds with an arming delay of 1. So that means there's 11 seconds. So that means 1 trap will only work every 11 seconds. So technically, if I had 11 of these, 1 would be able to go off every second. So the reload time wouldn't be as important because I'm only getting the benefit of basically the 1 a second activation anyway, regardless of how many I have. If you put a whole spread out, you're not going to see them all go off at the same time if there's a bunch of projectiles in the air, you'll still have projectiles hit and land because of that one at a time type activation that's going on with these things. So the damage, you could argue, and that's kind of what I'm doing right now, you can argue that having that damage is beneficial, especially once you get into the late missions in Twine, because the damage that this is doing to the husks in the air, for example, that Wave 1 Endurance husk that got thrown was one-shotted. And you can't do that with the reload and range anti-air trap. That's only being done with this damage anti-air trap. And that's something that I want to play with going forward. It's going to be hard to test right now, but it is a possibility. There is some open optionness that this could be useful. Do I think it's better to have the range and reload? At this point, still yes, especially when you're playing the lower missions, because the full-on damage isn't needed, and I'd rather have more range and a quicker reload, so I need less of these anti-air traps, and I can be a little less finicky about their location with the extra range. These ones would have to be more precisely placed, and you're going to need a lot more of them to be effective, and even still, because of the higher missions entwined, it may not be 100%. That I've been having a hard time test because flingers either will run away when these are placed or they'll try to divert around. It's almost like they sense the extra damage and they try to avoid throwing when these are in play. That's everything for today. I hope you find this information helpful, and it might not be always 100% accurate, but I'm trying my best to ensure the most detail that I can put forward. People are noticing things, though, and if you read the comments, you will see other people's feedback on this stuff, and I highly recommend taking a look at the comments just to see if people have posted anything. Eventually, I will update some of these to better reflect some of the changes people are suggesting or putting forward, as well as anything further, like these anti-airs that I've determined. I can't go through a 2.5-hour test and redesign my base today to account for these damage anti-airs, but I'm definitely going to be looking at it going forward, and I've already kind of readapted and took out the lobber shields, at least at home base to start, to see what kind of results I'll yield with this. And I'll keep people posted. But for now, that's the video. I hope you enjoy. I hope it's informative, helpful, and makes your game a better experience. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. I'll catch you around.